This is my topic: has the American school system become worse in the past 20 years? My parents always say that school was much harder when they grew up, which is their response to the amount of people who do well in school. The belief that schooling had become worse, though, was not confirmed only by my parents and other adults, but even my fellow students. Everyone I talked to seemed to think that school had become a worse place, an environment that did not enrich students, that did not challenge students. However, I believe this view to be offensive and demeaning to both my generation and myself. I thought school had not become worse in the past 20 years. In order to clear any misconceptions these people had, I would have to dig deeper, so I looked for evidence to prove them wrong. It turns out that even after extensive searches, I could not find a single direct article about the quality of American schools, instead being referred to questions about the effectiveness of our school system or articles about the economy's role in schooling. I would have to be an archaeologist to dig through the layers upon layers of articles talking about how college needs to cost less. But that doesn't mean we can't find the answer ourselves. We can infer from other sources whether or not school is actually worse than it was 20 years ago. I don't believe that it is. Here's why. Some compelling evidence comes from Mother Jones, an American magazine. In an article addressing the new popular belief that America's educational system has declined compared to the rest of the world, writer Kevin Drum revealed that not only were American school systems never better than other advanced countries, but American schools have actually gotten better in relation to other nations. The article demonstrates this by means testing. Compared to other advanced nations in 1964, our school system was 0.35 standard deviations below the mean. Recent testing shows us to be 0.06 to 0.18 standard deviations below the mean. Because of our schools getting better at teaching, it would make sense that students would learn more and get better grades. Therefore, parents might believe school to be easier due to higher test scores. One point my parents always bring up is the SAT, saying that the average score from their day would be higher than the one from ours. In actuality, when both were graded by the same standard, SAT math scores from the past 4 or 5 years exceed those of the 1980s by at very least 10 points. Men and women were both included in the averages, as were minorities, all with separate average scores listed. The increase in scores can generally be attributed to an increase in the quality of schooling, because better schooling is attributed to better knowledge of subjects, which is essential to get higher grades on exams such as the SAT. Considering that these scores were also considerably higher among groups of minorities that may not have been able to afford test prep, we can conclude that test prep did not play as large a role as some might say. Instead, the evidence would show that schools, where everyone is forced to go as the primary educational institution, played a bigger role. In an article from February 4th, 2014, Cloak and Equity, a website based around a reform, claimed that in a sampling of results from the TAS, Texas Assessment of Academic Skills, the standard exit exam in Texas, all students over a period of 8 years grew from a pass rate of 55% to a pass rate of 92%. The sampling included minorities and kept separate results, as well as an overall average, and was conducted from 1994 to 2002. Furthermore, the TAS was later replaced with another test, the TAKS, after too many students scored too high on the TAS. The TAKS was replaced similarly by the STAR exam, presumably for the same reason. The article goes on to talk about the NAEP, or the National Assessment of Educational Progress. The score of the average 9-year-old child being tested by the evaluation has risen by 25 points on a 500-point scale since 1978. The scores of 13-year-olds given a similar exam, adjusted for age, also increased about the same amount in the same period of time. Minorities were included in the study and increased about the same as whites and the overall average. In the words of the article, turns out American kids are getting smarter, not dumber. Who'd have thunk it? Seems pretty self-explanatory, but test scores all over America are increasing. The national exam rate, perhaps a better marker of student education, yielded slow but sure growth, while the text and exam rate increased almost faster than one could believe. This seems to be due to better teaching methods and more effective teachers, as this is the most logical explanation of how this is possible. The American school system may not have been said to have been improved in the past 30 years, but the evidence is overwhelming. This evidence is at the fingertips of the American public, but there doesn't seem to be too much interest in the topic. No, the American public is just interested in repeatedly bashing the American school system, with no knowledge of whether or not it's actually bad. They only know that most of Europe's educational systems are better than ours, and they seem to think that at one time we were better than we're the best in the world. They don't know that we were never the best. They don't know that we're becoming closer to the best every day. They are not aware at the rate of which test scores and grades have increased. The lack of knowledge about our school system has allowed people to place a negative stigma on it that is unfounded. The future of our educational system is bright and should be known as such.